You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Next Generation episode, The Vengeance Factor. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Jason Tyler. Hey, Father.
Good morning.
And Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. We have more of your listener feedback that we love to get so much. And I want to encourage you to share the podcast with your friends, other Trek fans, non-Trek fans, everybody, so that we can grow this community and reach more listeners. So let's quickly turn to our topic for today. Jimmy, can you give us a recap of the Vengeance Factor?
This week, the Enterprise gang visits an outpost that has been raided by a group of space pirates known as the Gatherers. The Gatherers hail from the planet Akamar 3. They split off from Akamarian society 100 years ago, so Picard goes there and picks up the ruler of the planet, Sovereign Maruk. He wants her to negotiate a deal to reintegrate the Gatherers into Akamarian society. She agrees, and the leader of the Gatherers, a dude named Chorgan, is receptive. But it turns out that Maruk's chief chef and food taster, Yuta, is a 100-year-old member of Clan Trelestra. She ages super slowly, and she's on a mission to kill the last remaining members of Clan Lornak, the clan that killed hers. Chorgan is of Clan Lornak, so she tries to kill him. But Riker, who has the hots for her, evaporates her with his phaser, and afterwards we're told that a truce with the Gatherers is holding. The end.
Father, what'd you think of this one?
It's okay. Not a fabulous episode, but I suppose not horrible either. It's one of those kind of mid-level episodes. When I heard the title, I had a little bit of a trouble remembering, which one it was, until I saw kind of the, what do I call it? Just that one image that's there on the streaming. It's, oh, yes, it's this one with the girl that can carry the virus in her hand or whatever. Yeah. And so, yeah.
How about you, Jimmy? What did you think of this one?
Oh, this episode is thoroughly mediocre. It is not good, not great. It is not horrible. It's really bland Star Trek fare.
Yeah, I felt like the Gatherers were kind of silly. They're sort of dressed up like Mad Max sort of analogs.
With ritualized facial scarring and facial tattoos.
Yeah, and the way they had them
and
behaving
leather jackets.
It was kind of weird. The behaviors, it was kind of silly, over the top. I think the story itself could have been good. I think I like the idea of this, vengeance carried out over long periods of time. The remnants of this feud, Hatfields and McCoys sort of thing that's kind of stuck around over the decades. I liked it. A small thing that I kind of liked was the dialogue was, in general, in many parts, kept spare. It wasn't excessively effusive or explanatory. Sometimes, like, especially I think with Picard, they let the story come out in the acting as opposed to having to explain everything. Much is said without it having to be explicitly said. And I like that because early Star Trek Next Gen was not good at that. So this was at least a break from that in Next Gen. So that was good.
Yeah, now this is a third season episode, so this is the season where Star Trek starts to become better. It's not really, to my mind, it's not till the end of season 3 that it really clicks into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but it is on balance typically better than first and second seasons. If we're talking about small things that we liked, one of the things that I liked was the acting choices of the actress who played Yuta, the plague carrier.
Mm-hmm.
She has been through traumatic experiences. She saw the rest of her clan massacred 80 years ago, and in the wake of that, some kind of dangerous experiment was done on her that extended her lifespan enormously so she could hunt down the rest of Clan Lornak, and she was infected with this virus, which they call a microvirus. And I'm like, aren't they all?
I had that same thought.
I mean, I guess maybe Voyager fought a macrovirus once, but
I was just thinking about that.
I wouldn't expect microvirus to enter the language. But anyway, she's had all this horrible stuff done to her, and she plays her part as very reserved, and even her body language, she keeps her arms close to her body the whole time. So physically, she's sending off, I am very reserved. I'm, protecting myself. I am fragile vibes. And I thought that was a nice choice in contrast to all of the loud other gatherer characters we've got on this show.
Yeah. They were pretty bombastic. Interesting. We have this science outpost on the frontier trope, which Lower Decks skewered pretty well. They did the definitive skewering of that trope. Yes. The destroyed, everything's messed up, and they immediately could like move some debris on the floor and then go, they've taken the reactor. I'm like, is the reactor going to be kind of hidden by the debris on the floor? It's like, it was kind of a weird choice.
There's also an interesting behind the scenes fact in that scene, which is that they have a painting that was done for Forbidden Planet of some rocks, of like a cliff face
out the window,
and the Okudas found that was available for rent and wanted to use it, and finally got it into this episode. So we're actually seeing a Forbidden Planet paint in there.
The classic sci-fi. That was really cool. So the whole Akamarian gatherer thing, where I was trying to think of, what were they an analog for some Earth historical thing? Were they like Romani or the Mongol hordes or something along those lines, or am I just reaching for an analogy that it's probably more general than that? I mean, do you feel like that they were being more specific in their references there?
I didn't get that. I mean, there could be something, but basically, so this is kind of this is a weird aspect of the writing in this episode. This base has been attacked by the gatherers, who are basically pirates, and there are two survivors, I guess, from the base, who they have under medical treatment, and they say they're going to be okay, and they have no lines of dialogue in the whole episode. They're irrelevant after that first scene. That's just there to get the plot moving. And then Kirk goes to Akamar, and he talks to the boss of the planet. Picard. He goes to Akamar, and he talks to the boss of the planet, Sovereign Maruk, who is a supercilious bigot. I mean, she is just thoroughly unsympathetic. And you watch her dialogue. She never misses an opportunity to diss the gatherers. And it's like, you're trying to negotiate reunification with these people? Is this the attitude you want to take? I mean, shouldn't you be selling the benefits of your society to them rather than just constantly running them down? But the idea is we want you to deal with the situation by reuniting with pirates. And I'm not familiar with any Earth situations where that has happened. Normally what you do with pirates is you hunt them down and you kill or imprison them all. Right. But I don't know of any situations where it's like, we could so improve shipping if you would just reintegrate these pirates into your society.
Yeah, I was thinking more like rebellious clans, or that have kind of fallen outside of the normal bounds of societal norms and that sort of thing. But yeah, it was like she kept acting. Maruk kept acting like she was throwing them a bone. Like, of course you want to come back to our planet Akamar and settle down in some unused places that you can, farm and be far away from the rest of us and do whatever it is you're going to do over there. It just,
you can be a farmer king instead of a pirate king.
It did seem very condescending, and it didn't. I mean, I kind of was on the part of, on the side of Chorgan at that moment. Like, what are we supposed to do with that? Like, we're not farmers. So you're gonna give us resources? You're gonna give us representation in the government? You're gonna give us anything? And she seemed like, how dare you ask for these basic elements of being a citizen of our society.
The other thing,
the
other thing is it's always interesting about these, how fast the diplomacy seems to unfold, right? I mean, you have at the beginning of the episode these two groups that are not talking to each other and don't seem to want to have anything to do with each other. By the end, they have a truce and they're, seemingly moving toward that reintegration. You look in real life, how long has the United States been talking to Iran about its nuclear capabilities or whatever, right? Or any other diplomatic type thing you can think of in the world stretches out over years if it's a big deal. And these things happen quickly.
I view this under the same kind of banner as TV and movie romances,
right?
Where you get the characters together and they have this super fast romance. And if I need to, I can headcanon this is taking place over a couple of years or something.
Sure, yeah,
right. It's like police cases on on CSI. The murder's committed on Monday. They've got the guy in jail by Friday. It's like they've closed the case. Yeah, that doesn't. It's not how it works. Yeah. But then what we have is a society that's apparently progressed past its more savage roots, but yet has this remnant of its past as a reminder that the rest of society, the rest of the galaxy, by way of the Federation, says you need to deal with this. This is your problem. These are your people, which is an interesting attitude that they take.
One thing that I liked about I don't know how conscious this was. This may have been for plot convenience, but it is something that I thought was believable, even if the writers didn't mean it this way, is after Dr. Beverly uploads the Akamarian database to try to find out what's going on, because they had this guy die of this microvirus. She realizes it's clan specific. She says, okay, this virus will kill 1 in a million Akamarians, and it will only kill members of this one specific clan. And that's too, Wuhan doesn't just crank that stuff out naturally. You don't find that in a wet market. That's so specific that this is a bioweapon.
Yeah.
And it targets this one specific clan Lornak. But when they look and they figure out the Lornaks massacred the Trelestras, and so they think, okay, maybe it's one of them. But then they hit a wall because the clan affiliation information is not part of the medical database. They don't have what clan you're a member of in the database. And this makes sense because the Akamarians blamed their clan warfare on the problems in their society. And so now they have a clan blind society on Akamar. And it makes sense. There have been parallels, like when India abolished its caste system, it's still, the castes are still a real thing and they're really part of society and are affecting society. But to protect everybody, it's no longer part of your records.
Right.
And so it made sense to me that they would, if clans had been the problem in their society, even though there are still going to be after effects of that clan system, like with Yuta and her whole mission, it makes sense to me that it wouldn't just have your clan affiliation in your civil records so that you couldn't be discriminated against.
Right. A couple other things. I liked the Gatherer camp set. It was pretty elaborate.
Oh, yeah.
Multi-levels.
Yeah, it's a really great, nice, extra large set with iron scaffolding. And even the director, talked about how that was such a great set. It really gives you a sense of scope that we don't normally have. Normally we're in a little cave that's not much taller than a person, but this was huge. It was multi-stories tall. And the director was lamenting that they had this awesome set and it was only up for 2 days.
Yes. We have the Maruk arrives, the sovereign. She's got these two servants, bodyguard who never says a thing, and Yuta, as you mentioned, the official chef and taste tester, and of course Will Riker being the Kirk's spiritual successor, immediately starts hitting on the pretty girl, and I think we start with her, showing her the replicator and how to program it, and as mentioned, Jimmy, she's very reserved, but she responds because there's this handsome man who's paying attention to her, and I like how they slowly have her come out of her shell with him, and that enhances the pathos of the ending where
he's got a vaporizer. Yeah.
I mean, I like the way that character develops. It's the bright point in it, as we all agreed is a pretty mediocre episode, is Yuta herself. She's an interesting character that we get to see, and there's a couple of interesting interactions, like when she brings the dish of
stuff
a la Yuta, as he puts it, and to 10 forward, and there's an interesting moment where Troy and Riker are sitting there at the table, and
Troy senses she's a third wheel in this situation. Yeah.
Like he gives her a look and she's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be the third wheel. I'll let you go. And then, Yuta sits down with him, and there's an interesting conversation about this idea of, Riker, I value freedom above all else. Lots of talk about freedom. Even Brule, the initial leader of the Gatherers that they meet, says that the Gatherers value freedom above all else, and Yuta herself says that I have no freedom because my path is clear, and she's not a slave to the sovereign, but she's she doesn't and we learn later on it's because of her mission, but she just doesn't feel like she can leave. And this interesting talk about how the Gatherers are the ones who are free, they see themselves as free, and it's the ones that are still on the planet who maybe are less free because they're at least Yuta is constricted by her mission, but just in general, I just thought it was interesting the lots of talk of freedom in this in the dialogue.
Father?
Yeah, I think I picked up on that as well. Some of these ideas of freedom in the Gatherers, their idea of freedom is just freedom to do whatever we want, the freedom from idea. And it reminded me a bit of what can happen sometimes with persons who are homeless or unhoused. That obviously there's a lot of mental health issues and different things that can go into that. But for some, it can come down to, hey, we can get you this shelter, we can get you a warm place to stay. Like, oh, but there are rules there, aren't there? I can't do there whatever I want, but if I hang out in the woods, I can do whatever I want. And that's difficult for a lot of us to understand and identify with. But that's the perspective that some have. And that was one thing that struck me with the Gatherers talking about their freedom, that they appear to have a pretty low quality of life compared to the Akamarians, but they consider themselves free because they can roam around and pillage and steal whatever they kind of come across.
And this is something that kind of comes up in, since you mentioned homeless folks, this is something that kind of comes up that morally complicates those situations in real life, because if someone has all the resources they need and they want to go live in the woods where they can do whatever they want, I'm fine with that. Great. Buy yourself a little piece of property, build a house, don't build a house, do whatever you want. But that's different than subsidizing a lifestyle that is destructive to the person. If someone has a destructive lifestyle and they want to go be by themselves and they've got the resources to do that, I'm not going to complain to them. But if they then ask me to subsidize a destructive lifestyle, that's a whole different kettle of fish. There are humanitarian reasons to try to help people out.
Sure.
And get them on a better path. But if they don't want to get on a better path and they're just looking to maintain a current, very problematic lifestyle, then that's something that I have a much harder time supporting. Some years ago, I was in when I was in California, I was going into a supermarket, and there was a young woman who was sitting out on the curb in front of the supermarket, barefooted, and had a cup of ice or something, ice water, and was shivering. And this is in Southern California, not even during the winter. So she's shivering for some reason, and her feet are all torn up because she doesn't have shoes. And I thought she could be coming down off a drug trip, or who knows, something is wrong here. And so I offered her a lift to a local hospital so she could get treatment. And as I'm driving her to the hospital, which she fortunately accepted, but as I'm driving her to the hospital, we started talking, and I'm trying to help point her in a good direction. And it turns out she had family members. She just didn't want to contact them. And because she didn't want to have anything to do with her family. And I mentioned social services and things like that. And she was not receptive to any of the ordinary channels of help that are available. Instead, she started hinting at crashing at my place, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, that's not happening. But I got her to the hospital, but I felt so bad for her because I wanted to help her out, and I was able to give her a little bit of help, but she was just resistant to any kind of longer term solution. And I'm glad I took her to the hospital, although I had to do some cleaning in the passenger side of my truck, if you know what I mean. But it does complicate matters when someone does not have resources and is living in a self-destructive way and then resists attempts at helping them.
Right.
This is one of the things I thought this story didn't do well, which was the gatherers were too receptive off the bat. They were it's too easy.
Agreed.
You obviously, like Maruk even says it, you obviously want to give up this lifestyle and come, as this was kind of what we were hinting at in our discussion here already. You obviously want to give that up and come live as farmers here, and be respectable. And they kind of go, sure. I mean, okay. I mean, we kind of want some things from you, but yeah.
This is a diplomatic meet cute.
Right.
It's all accelerated.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, couple of small things I liked. After you just killed the first of the Lornak clan members in the Gatherer camp, Dr. Beverly has come and she wants to examine the corpse, and already the Gatherers have been stripping the corpse of his boots, and Riker just walks up, grabs the guy by the shoulders, and tosses him casually away, like you don't need to be here anymore, and just tosses him away. And I just thought that was a funny physical acting moment in that one. That was good. And then if you had wanted something about that,
not about that, but I was going to touch base before we get too far down the line about Yuta, because we commented on her character arc. And kind of the climax of it the pre-climax is she's alone. Riker has been putting the moves on her, and she's alone with Riker, and she gets aggressive. She's very receptive to him. And she's saying, "Tell me what you want, William. I will do anything you wish." And she's saying it in this kind of desperate way. And that puts Riker off, which is actually, Riker's sexual ethics can do with a lot of improvement, but at least he wants an equal, not someone who's desperate to please him. And she reveals at that point that she doesn't feel pleasure or passion and has not been able to for a long time. And that's because of the trauma that she's been through. And that's an insightful moment into her character. And Riker doesn't query, and this is understandable. If someone says that they haven't been able to feel pleasure or passion for a long time, and they've just been coming on to you, this is maybe not the right moment to say, tell me all about it.
Right.
because of the privacy, because there's some kind of trauma there.
Mm-hmm.
And Riker doesn't know what kind of trauma it is. He doesn't know about these experiments that were done on her to extend her lifespan and make her a walking typhoid Mary. But he's presumably assuming that someone sexually abused her in her past, and that's shut down her normal sexual response.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I don't know who did this to you or why, but it can change. So he's trying to hold out, the prospect of therapy of some form to her, that things can get better. And she says at that point, I wish it could, tonight most of all. And that's, even though this is a situation they shouldn't be in, that's a very human thing to say. It's emotionally effective. And so I thought this was a good scene.
I think she's presumably also anticipating the end of her mission soon, because Chorgan is the last of the Lornak clan, her last target. And once he's gone, that's it. And that would presumably end whatever reason she has for continuing on. At the beginning of the scene, I was wondering, because I didn't remember the details of all the details of the episode. I was wondering, did Maruk send her to Riker? Because she kind of hints that Maruk said I could come and see you. Although in the retrospect, presumably it's because Maruk thought, oh, maybe Yuta likes Riker and I want to do something nice for her. Go spend some time with that nice Starfleet officer or something. But at the beginning, it seems like Maruk had sent her for nefarious purposes, but I guess not. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think she just, you're off duty, go do whatever you want. See that Riker guy.
One thing I liked in the production design was the way that they designed the character of Yuta, in that, in addition to the way the actress held herself physically, they dressed her attractive but modestly, which is sort of accurately reflecting your character. She's obviously pretty, but she's not like, in revealing clothing per se, but it's attractive clothing, but it's a full length, to the floor sort of gown. And it's like, I just think that they did a good job with the character of Yuta. I think she was an interesting, compelling sort of character in this.
And the full length dress where you don't see any skin except for her hands and her face is a good move for this character.
Yes.
It's much better than if she was walking around in a bikini.
Right. Which the original series would have probably had her in some sort of gold revealing bikini. Thank you, Gene Roddenberry. So interesting here. Couple other thoughts. When Riker ends up having to kill Yuta, everybody just sits there while he's phasering her over and over. It turns out that the director, in retrospect, said, I made a bad decision having Picard. I wanted Picard in the scene in the background as this happens. But because of the CGI that they had to do, Patrick Stewart had to sit perfectly still while things were happening. And therefore, it made him look like he was completely uncaring about what was happening.
Yeah.
And Patrick Stewart apparently didn't like it at the time, and the director says, "Yeah, that was a mistake." In retrospect, so I thought that was an interesting.
The thing I thought was weird about that, from I guess from an in-universe perspective, is why does Riker beam down alone? Why does he not take Worf with him, or a couple of security personnel or something? And Data, exactly. Somebody could have restrained her, and they could have, taken her prisoner, and she could have been prosecuted or whatever else for what was going on, rather than having to kill her right there. Now, obviously, none of that would be as dramatic in terms of the way it's delivered to us.
That's why.
And that's it. But it would have been, I don't know, you can headcanon it to say, well, maybe he had to go down alone in order to, maybe he figured it out and had to move quickly and couldn't put a team together, or had to move alone because he didn't want to, startle whoever's looking at the sensors on Chorgon's ship or whatever there.
Or maybe he thought, a phaser blast should take her out. She's just a girl.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Like no offense to girls, but like she's just like a slight woman. I mean, she's just not, and that her ability to shed off a phaser stun beam was a surprise to him, and so he miscalculated in that instance. So, yeah. I do like at the end as Picard hints that Riker can take shore leave if he wants. This goes back to what I was talking about, like saying things without having to explicitly say them. And then Riker says, "I'll pass the message along to the crew about taking some shore leave," as in Picard is implying you maybe want to take some time to deal with this, and Riker saying, "I don't want to have to deal with this at the moment."
Or my way of dealing with it is by staying at work rather than going off and thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right. So I liked that they did that, because on the USS Emotional Discovery, we would have an extended sequence where they would talk about their feelings about it, the situation. Anything else? Actually, I did have one more thing. Brule and Wesley.
Crusher. I was going to bring this up.
Yeah. I'll let you bring it up.
Okay, so in addition to, we've been talking about Chornak because he's the ultimate, he's the ultimate boss of the space pirates. But in order to get to him, they first meet this other group that's headed by a guy named Brule. And Brule then gets on board the Enterprise and guides them to Chornak, the ultimate leader. And that's nice in and of itself, because it shows that the Gatherers are a extensive enough group that they're not it's not like 12 guys in a spaceship. This is a much larger group of people, and they're not all in one place, and so the odds of running into their leader on the first go are pretty low, so they need an intermediate leader to take them to the main leader. And Brule strikes up a relationship with Wesley on board the Enterprise, and he's like giving Wesley advice about how to get there navigationally, because Wesley's serving as the navigator, and Wesley then points out, or we could do that, or we could do this other thing that's actually a lot better, and that impresses Brule. So Brule is impressed by Wesley. He's also coming from a very different place. Wesley is this academic bookworm, and Brule is like an adult version of, the bad boy from high school who couldn't care less about books.
Yeah.
Right.
But you get this respect going between the two of them, where Brule actually likes Wesley. He's got an interesting way of showing it, but he is impressed by and likes Wesley. And Wesley starts to respect him, but there are some bumps in the road. Like at one point, Brule mentions he's got some kids, and Wesley has this amazing reaction of, "You have children?" And I'm like, okay, Wes, people from the outer sectors of society come from somewhere. Little
gatherers come from the big gatherers. And daddy gatherer and mommy gatherer like each other very much.
But so I love that the naivete of that line on Wesley's part.
Yeah.
He clearly went to an upper class school.
Yes. There was an earlier moment when Brule first comes on the bridge, and Picard says, "Tell Wesley, how to get where we need to go." Brule kind of goes, "A child is piloting your starship?" And Picard just kind of glares at him with that patented Picard glare. And Brule just like immediately like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." Like, wow, like he's got that headmaster glare down that even a gatherer chieftain or whatever will back down immediately.
There also could be another layer to that line, which is that Captain Picard didn't really want Wesley on the bridge at all to begin with, and he's kind of been reluctantly backed into having this, and now someone's pointing it out.
That's true. That is true. Yes. I was just thinking, I wonder if the Gatherers at all influenced the idea of the Kazon later on in Voyager, the clans, the sort of thing. Not directly, but probably in some respect, there might have been something there.
Yeah, at least the we know that the Akamarians had some kind of a solution, because they later get control of half of Starbase 80.
Yes, in the lower decks. That's right. Any other notes on this one, Father?
Nope, we covered all of the stuff I had written down.
All right. Jimmy, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
I mean, we got a lot out of a discussion of a show we all thought was pretty mediocre. Actually, there was some stuff worth talking about there. So that's pretty good. All right, I did promise we had some listener feedback, and this came from our discussion of the Deep Space Nine episode Dramatis Personae. Ground Squirrel 123 on YouTube writes, when I was in grad school studying geology/paleontology, many of my fellow students were Star Trek fans. No surprise there. We were once hanging out, and this episode happened to be on TV in reruns. We all heard it as dolomite, a word that geologists are very familiar with, and imagined it as a big rock you use to bonk your enemy on the head.
I know. I was very distracted by that. They kept saying the name of this mineral, and I kept thinking dolomite, the really hard rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was to remind folks, it was this thing
that was being smuggled by another race. Yeah,
and used for weapons technology.
Yeah,
which dolomite, the Earth rock, would not be used for any sort of weapons technology other than to bonk someone on the head. It's not useful for anything else.
Maybe with a trebuchet.
right. There you go. All right. So thank you for the feedback. And now we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Father Anthony G., Michael P., Robert S., John L., and Robert C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of The Vengeance Factor? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can watch The Secrets of Star Trek on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia and leave a comment there. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Deep Space Nine episode, Our Man Bashir. Until then, Father Jason Tyler, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, your ambushes would be more successful if you bathe more often.